welcome back to Alice Talks Football and welcome back to the daily Manchester United news show. All the latest news coming in this morning. Lots to get through. Paul Mitchell, the new director of football, pre-agreement already there. Could they be getting in two directors of football? What's going on there? Blanc, who's reportedly coming in to replace Richard Arnold, has been described as the Lionel Messi of the business world. We've got some dressing room inside sources on who the leaders are within the dressing room and what's the current situation within the dressing room, and of course the relations with Erik ten Hag. We've got a lot of positive leaks, a lot of positive briefings at the moment. We've got leaks from Maguire, how he dealt with losing captaincy and how he's been dealing with the Jadon Sancho situation. Maguire seems to be putting Jadon Sancho in his place, which Sancho is obviously not really listening to. We're going to have a big talk about Pellistri and his recent performances on international base. Should he be playing ahead of Antony? And then there's a little bit of transfer news to dive into. So please do hit that like button if you're new. Please do hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. So it's said by AZ that Paul Mitchell already has a pre-agreement with Manchester United. There's a lot of reports saying that Paul Mitchell's set to join United. He's the leading contender. He's the front runner. We basically know that Paul Mitchell wants to come to United. Jim Ratcliffe wants Paul Mitchell, and there's very much probably a pre-agreement there. We know that Paul Mitchell cannot join until Ratcliffe is confirmed. We know that Blanc cannot join until Ratcliffe is confirmed. But essentially, they're saying that the pre-agreement is essentially there. Like, he's agreed to join verbally. He's who Jim wants, and I think that's expected to happen. Now, an interesting thing was said last night by Alex Crook that Crystal Palace sporting director Dougie Freedman is a genuine contender to join Man United's long-term recruitment team. And there's another name under consideration, and he said that he would not rule out more than one appointment. So could it be Paul Mitchell and, of course, Dougie Freedman? How would that work? Could that be a good possibility? Potentially. I think Dougie Freedman's done a really good job at Crystal Palace, but he's not Paul Mitchell for me. But I do think both of them, if they were both at United, I won't complain, because you've got to think of Eze, Elise, some of the talents that Crystal Palace found with their budget. I think they've got a lot of good talents there. Continuing on as well. So who is Richard Blanc? Who is Jean-Claude Blanc, sort of the Richard Arnold replacement? Sky Kavanagh said today, I think Richard Arnold will leaving the club will be the first of a few changes at Manchester United over the next few days. We know that Mert is going to go, Harrison's going to go, Fletcher's going to go, a lot of players are going to go, a lot of technical staff will go, recruitment staff, scouting staff, medical staff. We know there's going to be about 10 people leaving United within the next few months. Sky Kavanagh spoke on Jean-Claude Blanc and said a lot of people in the sports business industry speak very highly of him. And the CEO of Nice, Fabrice Becquet, said on Blanc that he's a bit like the Lionel Messi of the sports business. It is not only a question of expertise, but interpersonal skills. He brings vision, he brings his network, his calm, and his experience. And I think Blanc, from his track record, has been very good. I think people like Paul Mitchell from his track record have been very good. So Blanc and Paul Mitchell coming to United should be massive and should give us a massive boost. The one thing I will say is, at the end of the day, Joel Glazer is still on the Man United board. So how much will Blanc and Mitchell be able to do that they want to do? If all reported is correct, we will get Blanc and Mitchell, and I'm very happy with that. But as I've said, Jim has only taken 12.5% of the Glazers so far. Yes, he gets sporting control. Yes, he's recruiting the right people. But just how much power and control are they going to be allowed? That, for me, is the big question. He's still working under the Glazers. Just because Jim's got a bit of control doesn't mean that lots can change. Anyway, let's talk about what's going on inside the United dressing room, because there's a feeling that there's definitely a mentality issue at United, and it does feel like there's a lack of leaders. And Andy Mitten sort of spoke about who are seen as the leaders and the most respected members of the United dressing room. He said Bruno Fernandes is loved by many at Manchester United, including the staff who deal with him every day. He is friendly, he smiles, he talks, he jokes. Source said there is no player more engaged with the whole team, more frank, more communicative, and more linked to the club. Its values and history. Is also very professional. And I think that's spot on. A lot of people don't like Bruno. Bruno gets a lot of stick by people. He whinges, he moans. Some people don't even want Bruno in the United side, but Bruno's the type of guy where you see him laughing with academy players that don't even touch football. Bruno's that kind of guy that seems to be friends with the academy players, seems to be friends with the first team players. I think English is the most spoken language at United, followed by Portuguese, and Bruno's, I think, fluent in English, Portuguese, and Spanish. So Bruno's sort of ability to communicate with people has been very good. But I remember when there's young players coming through, they'd all be friendly with Bruno, and Bruno would joke with them. And I think Bruno's that one guy that generally gets on with everyone at United and is liked by everyone at United. And I do think that Bruno's a leader. I know there's a lot of question marks over is Bruno Fernandes captain material. I think that Bruno's a leader. I just think the lack of leadership at United is above Bruno. I think the lack of leadership at United is those above Bruno, those at the top of the club. I think, we're not doing brilliant on the pitch and stuff. And people say, oh, Bruno's not captain, he whinges, he moans. But who's going to be captain? Because Casemiro, he's been out of form. Varane is starting to be out of favour. Who's going to be captain? Martinez, when he's injured. Bruno's our captain, and I think the lack of leadership problems at United haven't been Bruno's fault. He gets the blame for that a lot as captain. I think it's the lack of leadership above Bruno Fernandes, which is the problem. It was also said that Luke Shaw and Marcus Rashford are among the team's most experienced players, but they're not considered to wear the armband because there was rumours that Bruno could be stripped of captaincy and all of that as well. But I don't think Rashford's a captain. I think Rashford got offered captaincy under Ollie and turned it down, apparently. That was a rumour. Anyway, into part two, they then spoke about Casemiro and Varane, who apparently have the respect of all the other players in the dressing room because of what they've achieved in football, which is very obvious. It was also said that Scott McTominay is considered an example of professionalism. Johnny Evans and Tom Heaton are considered leaders in terms of attitude, professionalism, standards, and lack of ego as well. And they're saying that basically Evans, Tom Heaton, and McTominay, although they're not the best players with the best achievements because of their professionalism, their attitude, they're kind of considered as people to look up to. And that doesn't surprise me in the slightest. I've always said with Scott McTominay, one thing I never fault is his attitude. I've not been his biggest fan. I don't think he's good enough. I think if we utilised him properly, he can be good enough, but we don't have the team, the facilities to utilise him to his best like Scotland are. But one thing I'll never fault McTominay for is his attitude. He's always had a top attitude, top work rate, which is something that a lot of Man United players unfortunately haven't got. It was also said that Christian Eriksen is a good leader in a calm, stable, professional sense of word, according to source. And another said that Lisandro Martinez showed great leadership qualities in his first season. Yeah, apparently Lisandro Martinez, McTominay and Bruno were like the three most vocal people in the dressing room last year. And McTominay didn't play that much, but apparently Lisandro Martinez was the guy that would just lose his mind and shout at people and have that kind of Roy Keane mentality when we lost. And apparently Lisandro Martinez's presence actually not being in the dressing room this season, it feels amiss for some people. Apparently he's a real leader as well. So let's dive into the next bit of the story because we do have some Harry Maguire PR leaks, and I think there's a lot of positive news coming out of United at the moment, which is good, but I do think there's probably positive briefings as well going about because I think it's dry, it's the international break, let's do that. But I have been really impressed with Maguire's attitude this year, responding to losing captaincy, not playing. Doesn't do a Sancho and sulk, fights, gets back into the team. And I think it's interesting that he's the guy that spoke to Sancho and he's the guy that's back in the team playing, whereas Sancho didn't play 3 games at a strop. Maguire, it took about 10 games for Maguire to get a chance in the team and he didn't strop. It was said by Rob Dawson, those close to Maguire, and says nothing has changed and his standards in training and matches remain high even when he lost his place. Unlike Sancho, we know that Sancho, when he wasn't playing or being picked for the squad, was lazy in training. We knew that he did that at England. We knew that he did that at Dortmund. It was said sources close to Erik ten Hag said that he's been impressed by Harry Maguire's attitude since learning he will no longer be captain. There were concerns that losing the armband would disrupt the dressing room, but it was noted that Harry Maguire handled the decision well. Even though he's no longer the captain, he played a role in trying to convince Jadon Sancho to apologise to Ten Hag. I remember Harry Maguire put up a good statement. He'd lost captaincy. It was hard for him, but he got over it. You know, we have a big problem with attitude at United, and the one thing I'll never fault Maguire on is attitude. I think he's one of those guys where he just gets on with it. I think sometimes he comes across badly in interviews in the sense of, oh, if I was that bad, I wouldn't be picked each week in, week out. Or put my fingers in my ear when I score versus Albania. But I mean attitude, I mean like work rate. I think sometimes Maguire, I'm thinking, what are you saying? You come across so bad in interviews, but his work rate has been good. And I think that's an example to Sancho. Wan-Bissaka last year didn't get a minute of football before the World Cup, had 4 minutes of football before the World Cup. So that was, 14, 15 games in the season, Wan-Bissaka didn't even kick a football. Look at Wan-Bissaka now. Harry Maguire barely played the first few games, got captaincy stripped of him. Look at him now. I think that's a big example to Jadon Sancho of why were you stropping after 2 games into the season? And I assume Harry Maguire just spoke to Sancho and said, look, I wasn't in the team for a little bit. I just had to work hard, get back in the team and realise that maybe I wasn't good enough. And I think Sancho's better than Antony, but Sancho wasn't willing to work and be patient. Sancho was just willing to have a strop and not apologise and act like a child. Continuing on, talking about right wingers, because Antony hasn't been particularly impressive and obviously Jadon Sancho's kind of finished. We want to talk about Facundo Pellistri, who played 88 minutes as Uruguay beat Argentina 2-0 yesterday. Pellistri can beat the most dribbles out of anyone on the pitch. And Beth made a good point here, saying that Uruguay beat Brazil and Argentina with Pellistri playing on the right in both games. He should be getting more time for United. And I agree. I don't know if Pellistri will ever be Manchester United level. But what I know about Pellistri is he cannot do any worse than Antony. He cannot do any worse than Sancho because Sancho won't even bloody train. And he cannot be worse than Bruno on the right wing. Say what you want about Facundo Pellistri. I don't think he'll ever be a Man United player because he hasn't got that I think he's a Premier League player, but I think he's a guy that would probably is our best right winger in terms of work rate, what he adds. He's very much a team player. He will dribble at you. He will make things happen. He's very much a team player. He reminds me a little bit of Elanga, but I think he's better than Elanga. But actually, Elanga's been better this season. But I think Pellistri is one of those players where I've never had an issue with him. Yes, he doesn't get goals and assists. Yes, he's not like this amazing young talent that's just levels ahead of everyone else. But he's good. He works hard. I think he's a good team player. I think he's a good system player. And I think he needs to be getting more minutes on the right-hand side because I think he's better than Antony right now. I mean, look, I know Ten Hag signed Antony and all that, but I'd rather see Pellistri on the right-hand side. I think he's a good player. I think he might need a loan next season if we sign a right winger, but I think we might as well just play him. I'd rather see Pellistri and Ahmed play on the right wing. And look, I'm not saying Pellistri's bad at all. I love Pellistri. I think he should play. I think he's a good player. I just don't know if he'll ever reach the Man United level. I think he's one of those guys that I could see playing for like a 8th place Premier League club rather than Man United. But I think right now he should be playing for United because he's our best option at right wing. And I think Amad Diallo, when fit, should be playing for United because I think they're both better than Antony at the moment. And I've been a big fan of Pellistri, what he's done for Uruguay. I think a big fan of Pellistri when he came on versus Fulham. Would love to see more of Pellistri play. Going into the last bit, though, talking of the January transfer window, it was said by Sky Sports News that Manchester United are unlikely to spend big in January, with Sir Dave Brailsford carrying out an audit of the club operations and transfer business. Ratcliffe's Ineos are aiming to have a big say in how United run before the January transfer window opens, with Brailsford having a key role in the process. And then it was also said that Casemiro will not want to leave United in January for Saudi Arabia, despite rumours. So some reports are saying that we're going to have a big cash injection in January and spend a lot of money. Other reports are saying there's probably just not enough time. They're just going to come up with a transfer strategy and get the right people in place before they buy someone in January. It might not be done by the January window. I think come December, we'll have more of a feeling of what we're going to do in January. It could be a really good January transfer window. It could be another glazed January transfer window. It depends on how this takeover moves and more. Anyway, guys, please do hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.